Hello, my name is Lisa Philippi, and thanks so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. In my last video, I had several people asking how I create the waterfall effect or this layered effect on the front cover. So I was gonna kind of show you how I do that today. So I've kind of gotten everything ready. What I started with, again, I showed you kind of a little bit of how I do the paper around the edges of the focal point last time. And I will tell you that I did take that off and inked it up. So you can kind of see here on this in the middle part where I didn't ink it, but then I made it darker on the edges. And then, and so it's just kind of a rough, weathered, torn, aged look around it. And then what I used here is I started with an envelope, but you would not need to use an envelope. You can just use a piece of paper or cardstock. I would probably recommend cardstock because even though I did use an envelope, it's been reinforced with paper on both sides so that it makes it thicker. And so what I did though was I used, let me set this aside. I used an envelope that was this size, and I needed it to be a little bit smaller because I didn't want it to be, you know, so much bigger than my image here. I only wanted it that size. So I just used a trimmer and trimmed off, you know, trimmed off a little bit on this end, right? Because then I can still glue that part together to close up the bottom of the envelope, right? And then I needed it to be a little shorter. So I trimmed off some from, you know, one of the edges. So I trimmed that. Let's just say it's about like that, right? To get roughly that size, pretty close. And then of course I rounded the corners. So, but before I glue this back together, that's when I'm going to go ahead and cover this with the paper that I wanted to use on this side and on this side. And then, so let me kind of turn it the right direction so that then this, I put the darker paper, this color on this bottom part underneath, right? And then I came back and covered this little flap to make the pocket with this, and then just notched that little part out. Then once you've got all of that covered, then I glued it back together. So see, even here on this end, I don't have this completely glued together yet, but that's ready to be glued. So I can go ahead and get my glue out and just put a tiny bit of glue here because I had started to glue part of it back, and then I had to lift it up because I was like, oh wait, I don't want to glue that yet. And then this is what's going to, so also before I do anything else, I also have the rest of my journal kind of ready. So what I've done here is gotten all of the papers that I'm going to use in the signature ready to be put into that signature. So they're folded. They're basically kind of started. So all of that's ready, but I'm going to set that aside. But I have, this was my, it was started out as just a file folder that I coffee dyed. The file folder already had the scores in it for creating the spine. It has different ones, so I could have folded it on one of the other lines to make a smaller spine, but I did this. And then I just covered the outside to the to here with some, this was some Tim Holtz cardstock from a pad that I used. And then the rest is going to get covered eventually too, but this is just kind of, like I said, my starting point. So then this is going to get put on to here. It's going to get glued on. Now, before, of course, I do that, what takes so much time is just making the decisions of what papers you want to use for the colors, for the contrasts, and all that sort of stuff. So this is what I have picked out and decided to do. And when you're choosing those papers, it's hard because they're bigger. They're not cut down to the right size. So you have to kind of visualize it. And then also, they're not inked on the edges yet. And so I have to kind of visualize, because at first this paper was questionable. This one was questionable because I was like, is that enough contrast? But once I got the edging, the inking on the edges, it does give enough contrast, I think, for me. So this is going to get up to here. I wanted that to go kind of on that line so that it shows there. And then this is going to go, so this is where I'm going to glue this on, is right about, hang on, let me put my glasses on. Make sure I have everything where I want it to be. So right about there, I think on this one, I might move it down. No, I think that's where I want it to be. So I'm going to pull these out, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue this right into this place. So let me get my glue ready, and I'm sorry if I'm not on frame for all of this, but again, I'm not a professional videographer, and I'm trying to show you what I do. Let me get my glue going here. So I'm going to use this glue. I'm going to put some here. If my glue will come out. I don't want to let go of this because I've already got it right in the right spot. Hang on, let me see if I can get my glue to come out better. I was just using it last night, but let's try this again. And anyway, so I'm going to put some of this glue, and I'm going to put some other glue as well, just because I want it to be really, really secure. And let's try this one too. This one is the Art Glitter Glue. The other one that's the clear one is like Fabric Tack or 3-in-1. Okay, so now this is going to get glued here like so on the spine. And then this is going to come around to the back. I'm going to glue that as well. And then that's going to get, the whole thing is going to get covered with another piece of paper. But let me, hopefully I'm still in screen. Get this all glued here. And then I'm going to get this, once I get this glued down, I'm going to show you how we will sew the signature in on that first front cover layer. Okay. Okay, that should be good now. I can get this glued down. Okay. And like I said, that's going to get covered up on the back. So that's the back of the journal. Here we have the front of the journal. Now, right here on this, in that seam, is where I'm going to sew in this signature. Okay, like so. And I want to get that butted up in there just as good as I can so that those are right on that edge. And then, let's see. So I have an envelope here that I made that is not glued together yet, that is going to be the center of that signature. And then that's going to get decorated onto the envelope, but I can set that aside. But that, let me make sure I have everything where I want it, because again, once you sew it in, so that's in the right place. This is in the right place. I want this one to come down just a little bit. Get that lined up just like I want it. Like so, up a little bit, right about there. So that's the way I'm gonna put it. And then what I have is my bookbinding tools here. I've got some clips like these. I think these were like hair clips, but I like them for this because I can do this and it clips all the way down. And then on this side, I can do another one. Let me grab another clip. You can also use binder clips, but see, this is not long enough to go all the way down. So I found these clips that I like for this. And as far as inspiration, I know that I've watched lots of YouTube videos. Leslie at Willow House Journals is probably one of the ones who has inspired me to do the layering effect. And also Cathy at, I believe it's Cathy's, I'll have to look and I'll link it at the bottom. But they both do a lot of videos and I've gotten a lot of ideas. I know that when they bind, sometimes they use big paper clips to hold this, but I have never found those great big paper clips. So, you know, use what you can find. But now that that's clipped in there, I would be ready to sew the signature in. The one thing that you have to be sure to do, though, is when you're sewing the signature in, I can only go from here to here. Hopefully you can see that. I can only sew my signature from here, this to here. So when I'm doing that, I need to do like 1, 2, 3 here, only to get into that. So these up here they're sewn in, but the threads are not going to be up here because that won't catch anything. It needs to be down here. So let me go ahead and get a needle and get that ready. That part I didn't get ready. Let me see. I think I'm going to just use this neutral color here. Or do I want a darker brown? Maybe the darker brown. Let me snip that. And thread my needle. And I hope that this helps. I watch a lot of YouTube videos as well, so you may have already seen all of everything that I'm showing you how to do somewhere else. But like I said, in my comments of my last video, I had a lot of people ask. So I'm going to try to basically go there in the center for my middle one. And that's about the center. So, and I want to make sure that I'm doing this straight down so that it comes up right there. See? And that's in. And then for the other one, I want to go right about there. And again, I want to go straight down so that it comes up right there. And then for this one to catch inside here, I want to go right there. Okay, so now that my 3 holes are in, and again, I don't measure, I eyeball, but like I said, since I can see that that's where it needs to be, I'm pretty good there. And then I'm just going to go here to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and I'm going to just kind of hold that with my finger, and then I'm going to go down here, come straight up. Let me make sure I catch that. Let me get that hole a little bit good there. I keep coming up in the wrong place. Let me try it from this direction. There we go. Now I'm in. And then I'm going to come down to this hole. Make sure I get that. I'm not an expert binder, but I do enjoy making these journals. And then I'm going to come right back up through that center hole again. And then I'm going to just take it on the other side. Let me pull my thread through. On the other side of that center, so that I've got one on this side and one on the other. And pull it very tight. Not so tight that you are gonna, you know, break anything, but double check here on the side that they're nice and tight. And then, what I'm using is a waxed linen so that it really stays, it doesn't get wiggly. But once I get this tied, get my needle. Once I get this tied, I usually do a little dot of glue down in the center of each one of these little holes right here. So like right there, I'll do just a little dot of glue, and there a little dot of glue, and there a little dot of glue, and let that dry. And then let me snip off the ends. Of this, and then when I close up that envelope, those threads are going to be hidden inside that center envelope, which is also something I've watched a video and learned how to do that. But I have definitely been inspired by so many other people's videos as well. So I do really appreciate everyone who does take the time to do that. So now that that signature is sewn in, then I can start, you know, doing more to decorate the pages, and go ahead and then sew in my other signature here. I had already decided, and see, this is going to go on the front here, but I usually kind of wait till the end because I think I'm also going to use some cheesecloth. I've got some coffee dyed or tea dyed cheesecloth that I'll probably kind of put down to give a little bit of texture there on that front as well. But let's see, on the inside here, I think I had decided to do some pockets. So I think this is how I had it laid out, to do just to cover that. And then this would create the first pocket, the second pocket, and the third pocket. So I will probably get that glued in before I go ahead and put in that signature. So those will get glued in there. And then I'll also go ahead and cover this page as well. And then, let me move my glues over. Then the signature can go ahead and get put in here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and end this for today. And then when I get this completely finished, we'll come back with a full flip through when it's ready to be listed in my Etsy shop. So again, I hope that this helps you understand how that's created. And have fun with it. Again, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.